Welcome to Resilience Talk, hosted by Paul Spencer of Second Nature Solutions. Let's dive in.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Resilience Talk podcast. I'm here with Paul Spencer, as always. Thanks for joining us, Paul. I know we have been talking the last few episodes about what we're calling this faith series and talking about faith and how that relates to different aspects of our lives, including businesses and including resilience. And today we are going to be talking about good news and why good news is so important. And so, Paul, I want to hear from this event that you went to. Tell us about why good news is on your mind these days. What precipitated this idea? And then why does it matter? Who cares that we have good news? Why are we thinking about it?
Yeah. So I have a friend of mine, Kent. I was meeting with him, basically an early morning coffee get together, and basically just talking to each other about nothing really around the society in general, but we were just talking business. Like I was asking him how things were going with his family. We were talking about family, but I was asking him if he knew somebody that I wanted to connect with, and he did. And he suggested that I go to this event called the Good News. And I was asking him more about that. I said, how'd you come up with that? And he said that, well, we're in Cincinnati, and sometimes Cincinnati gets a bad rap, and especially recently with some news and with the things going on in the city and the violence and that kind of stuff. And he said, but there's lots of awesome things that are going on in the city. A lot of new developments and initiatives and festivals and all kinds of things that people are working on in the city. And so he said that, I don't know how long it's been. It's been about a year, maybe 2 years that he put it on. And the point of everybody gathering is to create a platform for local people to kind of just speak into some of the cool things that they're up to for the city. And so I went to it, and it was fun. It was actually a lot of fun. I didn't know what to expect. And I enjoy going to those things anyway because you get to meet all kinds of different people. Mm-hmm. And amazingly enough, you go there to some, at least in my mind, a fairly random event that Kent was putting on in the Chamber of Commerce, which I hardly ever go. And so I'm downtown, and I run into 4 or 5 people there, right? Of course. And then you get to hang out with them and then meet new people. So it's kind of that atmosphere. And then they had, again, local people up on stage talking about the different things that they have going on. So in Cincinnati, for those who may not know, or most of you probably do, but we have a big beer heritage, right? So in the old days, Cincinnati was a big brewery city. And so we have Christian Moorline. And so there's Oktoberfest is a big thing in Cincinnati. So there were lots of things going on with that. And then I learned that every state has a committee for the 250-year anniversary of the United States. And every state committee is tasked with putting on something or a number of things within their own state to celebrate their own unique part of the country. And we're on the Ohio River, and we have lots of paddle boats, river boats, that are on the river from historical purposes, like we have restaurants and things that are out there. And so we're having an event around river boats. And so we're going to have boats from all over Memphis and New Orleans and all over. And it's meant to be a historical thing. So it's going to talk about the history of water, right? And transport within our country and how it shaped the country. And then there will be food on each one of the boats depending on what region they're from. So anyway, these are things I never even knew about. And they're talking about those fun things. We have a history with George Clooney. His mom is from Kentucky. He's from Kentucky. And I think I'm not originally from Cincinnati, but I think his dad was maybe a local broadcaster. And so there's a lady that knew him and his family, and I guess was really good friends with his mother, and she's in the biz. I'll call it the biz, right? And she was talking about these cool things that they're doing. They're bringing a conference here to Cincinnati around kind of an actors guild kind of thing. I'll call it that. I'm probably butchering that whole thing. But she was saying it was the first time it's going to be in the U.S. and not international for the last maybe 8 or 10 years, and they're going to host it here in Cincinnati. She's talking about all the different screenings, like movie screenings and things that they'll do. So anyway, lots of those kinds of things, which was fun to hear. Lots of other stuff that they did, and it's really fast. So it's all in a half hour. Bang, 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 bang. And so you get done, and you're like, oh, there's so many cool things that people are up to. So many cool things, at least from a Cincinnati perspective, historically, that we have in our city and that people are celebrating. And so that got me thinking about the faith series that we're talking about now. And obviously the good news translates, obviously. But it also fits into our age, the age that we've been talking about, right? The turbulent times, the age of change, right? And everything that's going on in the world, as we've been discussing and talking about. And it's easy to get lost in the minutia of that. And it's easy to get lost in the social aspects of that, or maybe even the political disagreements of what that looks like, or the world order of things, and on and on and on and on. And we talk about, obviously, as business owners, the minutia of tariffs and how governments change policies here and there, and it affects us. Those are the imposed inputs. So it's easy to be stuck on of all of that. But it's also just as easy to think about what's the good news. Like, what are the things going on in our industry? What are the things going on inside our business? What's the good news going on within the staff of our company, right? Maybe there's new babies, right? Maybe there's marriage, right? Maybe somebody's moving to a new place and they're graduating from our company and moving on to some other dream job, right? Those are all good news opportunities that we can shift our focus a little bit. And that makes us, I absolutely felt the good news at this event. And it was just very uplifting and fun. And I'm not a doom and gloom guy, so I wasn't going in there thinking, oh, the world's on fire, right? But it's just really fun to hear about, just like I just described to you. It's cool to think about all of these things that are going on that I had no idea were going on, right? So anyway, it gives you a different feeling. And when you can celebrate the good news, then you see the world in a different way. And then you just become more resilient, right? Just kind of go back to our theme of resiliency. And when those things do happen to us, right, we have more resiliency.
I think it's so important to, at times, periodically remind your team, your family, whatever it is, that there are a lot of amazing things that are happening, and that happiness or joy, which are two different things, but that kind of positive element is really important. Not to be glib, not to be trite, not to be dismissive of things that are very hard, and not being
even to put our head in the sand. Right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's not to hide from things.
Exactly. Yeah. But reminding. I mean, there's a lot of there's a whole body of research, happiness studies. There's like college courses about it. And one of the biggest things, I think, to your point, is I think it's like one of the top, if not the top thing that you can do to improve your overall perspective is gratitude journaling, and saying like, hey, you know what? There are actually some things that I'm really thankful for and that are really positive and I'm excited about. And that can change your perspective such that you do become more resilient because you're able to see a broader perspective, which is really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a powerful practice even right before bed. Yeah. What are the 3 things I'm grateful for from today, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
That's a great good news tool for sure.
So you were mentioning that without that reminder, you can get sucked into all the negativity of the world, of which there's quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to somebody recently, very close to me, that was saying basically like they're so consumed with the news or social media, Reddit, YouTube, and it's just felt like this vortex of like darkness, or thinking that World War III is coming, or whatever. But something that as you were talking, something that I was thinking about was this quote from Teddy Roosevelt, because it was talking about, it reminds me of like criticism is cheap and easy. And so it's a popular quote, but I wanted to read it really quickly because I think it kind of sets the stage of like, okay, how can we shift our perspectives then and become more resilient and be more, grateful, positive, hopeful. And the quote is is referred to as the man in the arena. And he says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat."
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
I love that.
Wrap it up.
I love that.
That's great.
Because it's so easy to like look out the world and like, oh, everything's wrong. My business, here are all the wrong things about it. And my family and myself, here's all the wrong things about it. But that kind of like hopeful, like, okay, let's shift our perspective a bit and let's think, what is going really well? What can we be positive about? It can work wonders.
Yeah. When you're the man in the arena, your perspective shifts. Mm-hmm. What's a good way of kind of describing that? If I'm devoted, may even say busy, but maybe devoted might be a better word, right? If I'm devoted to my business, or if I'm devoted to my family or to my wife, right? Or if I'm devoted to Jesus and God and the good news, I don't have time to sit and look and critique, right? Kind of going back to your quote, and critique everybody and what's going on, and sit on scrolling Instagram and Facebook and X and everything else, and right, the infinite scroll, right?
Doom scrolling, as they call it. Doom scrolling,
because it never goes away.
Yeah.
And you can get sucked into those things, but if you are devoted and you are disciplined and you're just doing the things that you enjoy, it doesn't mean that it's easy or that it's not hard work. I mean, that's in the quote too, right? You're sweating, right? What was the quote? Your face is dirty, mm-hmm. right? All those things are part of being devoted. And the idea of everything is easy and Pollyanna and utopian around us is not realistic and will never happen, right? But I think we've kind of proven the theory over the last couple years, just by our discussions, that we are in this age of turmoil, right? It's here, and we've talked about those theories, and will they actually come true? And I think the answer is yes, right?
Yeah,
we're experiencing it, and it's not like it was before, and maybe it's different than it was before, and all of that. But I think at this point we can expect not fun things to be occurring, right, around us.
Yeah.
But when we're devoted, and like what we talked about before, and we can reset ourselves, give ourselves some rest, some peace, some prayer, 15 minutes, right? And maybe even to reflect on the good news silently, and with others. There's so much to that, and I can just picture people listening, friends and family that I know would be nodding, absolutely, to everything that we're saying right here. And so all of that is just, how do we do more of it? How do we do it intentionally, right? How do we dedicate and devote ourselves to the good news? And maybe even that means that in our time that we do more of that than some of the other things that we enjoy doing, or maybe more of that than just spending time at work, heads down, doing this and that, right? And we're devoted spiritually, right? We're devoted with others socially. We're devoted in, again, just seeing the positive things going on in our world. And when we see those things, we get to join and be positive influences, and we get to create. And God gives us awesome things to download. And when we're in that mode and we're in that space and we're engaging and thinking about positive things, who knows what kind of ideas we get that now we're adding. Now I'm standing on that platform, right, at the Good News event, saying this is what I'm up to, and this is what, right? Those things start to snowball, and it's all part of life, right? That's what we all aspire for. Purpose in life, right?
I think it's essential. I think you can't do anything without, we are like purposeful beings. We have to have some kind of purpose about anything that we do, whatever, even if it's to not have a purpose in this moment. I'm resting, that is my purpose.
Yeah.
But I think before we get into, some of the more like practical, like how do we apply this, there's something that this quote touches on in the very end of it. It says, so that his place, the man in the arena, shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And I'm curious for you how, because you've brought up some virtues in the past and how the virtuous life, you even got me reading The Art of Living by Ed Sri, talks all about the virtues, highly recommend, please read it, is courage. Because I think to be a devoted person, to have this purpose, fix it on something, and do it day in and day out, even if it's to be a good spouse or a good parent or a good boss or a good employee or, even in some mundane everyday ways, it takes a lot of courage to get up and just do it again and again and again and again. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious how you relate courage to having that kind of devotion or that kind of focus like that.
So the worldly things pull us away from some of the devotion. And I'm not necessarily, doesn't necessarily mean a spiritual devotion, but it's just the devotion to do things that are right.
Yeah.
Right? So it's easy to defer that because I've got an important client meeting, or I've got an important business meeting, or maybe I defer something in my personal life because work, right, is pulling me in this direction.
Yeah.
And so it does take courage to be able to draw a line and say, work will be here tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty certain that if I got everything done today, that I'd still have work tomorrow. And if I got everything done that I want to get done tomorrow, that the next day I'll still have work to do, right? So work will never go away. So it takes courage for me to be able to say, I've done what I can do today, and maybe I have a process to best prioritize my work, right? But I've done what I can do today. I'm sharing in the good news of I've accomplished some good things today. Mm-hmm. There's more on my plate that will never go away. But that's good enough for today. And I can leave that for tomorrow or some other day. But in the end, I'm going to have a little courage, right, to tell my coworker or maybe my executive peer that says, hey, let's all take the rest of the day off. Well, it's 3:51, right? That's what time it is right now, right? And let's go share the good news, whatever that is, right? It could be with each by ourselves or with each other, right? And so I was pulling up some of the things that we had talked about with the virtue. And so virtue, yes, it takes courage, but this is the characteristics of virtue, right? Consistency, right? It means that we consistently respond virtuously, right? And what does that look like? It looks like with patience and perseverance, right? And how beautiful is that, right? That, and I do it with ease. And that means, and I'm reading this, right? Doing what is good is so deeply ingrained that virtuous deeds are automatic, right? Virtuous deeds. And what's a virtuous deed? It means it's the right action, right? So I do things consistently, with ease, and with promptitude. And what does promptitude mean? It means it's not enough to perform the right action, but it must be done right away. You may be able to do all these things and discern that, yeah, this is great, and this is the good news, and let's celebrate it. I don't have time. Let's do it next month, right?
I like it.
Yeah. And this other part of promptitude. When a difficult choice needs to be made, a virtuous person does not endlessly delay, but is willing to act at the right time. And then this is the last one. Consistency, ease, promptitude, and joy. A virtuous person does not just do what is right, but they do it joyfully. Right? And that just by itself takes courage.
Yeah.
To do something that maybe you don't want to do or that's uncomfortable, and to say, I'm going to do this joyfully.
I have read a lot of ethics books and, self-help books over the years. But when you shared The Art of Living by Ed Sri, we talked about it many moons ago, you described, I think, something like that at one point. And I was like, man, I need that. I want that. And he describes that in the book, that kind of, these are the habits, if you will, the kind of character traits of somebody who's virtuous.
Yeah.
And I remember the one about ease. I had never heard anyone express that this is what a virtuous person looks like. But when he said something about ease, it made me think, and he may even have this description, but of like, if your spouse comes and says, hey, can you do the dishes or can you clean this thing? And instead of going like, but I guess as a good, dutiful spouse, I'll get up and I'll go do it.
Exactly.
The virtuous person says, absolutely, I would love to do that because I want to serve you. I want to serve our family. And I'm going to get up right now and I'm going to go do it. Not tomorrow, but right now. And it made me think like, how do you develop that kind of sense? That is automatic, and it's really tough, I think, because it's not just in the little things like that, but in the big things, like you're saying, like I need to have a difficult conversation right now. How do I do that quickly?
Yeah. And that is you truly believe what you just said, right? Meaning, I would love to do that to help you, and I'll jump right on and do the dishes right now.
Because it brings you joy.
Yes. And you do that joyfully. And it's not faking it. It's not just saying it, right? You truly believe it, and it's in you. And that can be felt by all of us. We all as people can discern that at a snap, right? We can discern whether that is true, whether you believe it, right, or not, right?
You brought up this quote before we started recording from Earl Nightingale about how it's called The Strangest Secret. And the strangest secret in the world is that you become what you think about. And so in the last few minutes that we have here, what is a takeaway from someone? How do we develop this habit of being, in a person, the good news, and doing things virtuously with this ease and this joy, and become the man in the arena? What is one thing you would recommend folks to take away?
Yeah, if you could read that last line of the Roosevelt quote, just read that again if you still have it up.
Yeah, the last line is, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Yeah. So I would say that it's who you are around, right? If you show me your 5 best friends, I will know who you are, right? And to me, that's what that reflects, what that quote is, right? If I'm hanging around the lost, timid souls, it's going to be really hard for me to be the man in the arena and to be devoted and to have some of these qualities that we're talking about, right? Just to have the courage to be able to speak up and say whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or to even share the good news about what's going on in the city or what's going on in our lives or at our children's school or in our community, because those are the people who are going to poke holes in everything, right? Yeah, but what about this, right? And they just have, again, that quote's perfect because it's the criticism, right? At the very beginning. It's the constant critic, right? So no matter how much good news you share, this person or the people that you're around, if you are around the timid souls, will not share and rejoice in the good news with you. They will not, right?
That's right.
And all that does is just give you a habit of either not expressing the good news, you keep it to yourself, or being convinced that there is no good news, right? So I would say the first thing is just to see who you're around, who you spend a lot of time with. Are they people that you can share the good news with? And maybe you may not be sure, or you think so, right? If you're not sure, share the good news and you'll find out.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
And if you feel you can't share the good news, then maybe it's a time to take some courage. Doesn't mean you have to disown anybody, but maybe you can improve your social network, your social capital.
You will find those people that are toxically negative pretty quickly once you start trying to be positive. It'll become evident. But I would throw in that category too of who you know is also like what you're reading, kind of what that,
in the
that
social media.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Everything. Social media, news, everything that you're consuming is your friend, right? The one that you're hanging out with. Yeah.
Right.
And if you don't feel like that's not you, and you have great relationships, and you're not, you have maybe a good discipline around what you consume and how often, then share the good news. What's keeping you from doing that?
That's right.
And what's keeping you from growing the people you share the good news with?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, thank you for bringing that to our attention. You are one of those people that creates that kind of positivity and that hope and that encouragement, which then leads, of course, to resilience. And so I would love listeners to please go to secondnature.solutions and find our newsletter, find Paul on LinkedIn, share some good news, reply back to the newsletter and share some good news. We'd love to talk more about that kind of thing on the show, and would love to hear what's going good in your world. So Paul, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon.